Hello everyone, welcome to Conversations with Sakina. Today we are going to look into an old cryptid case where the encounter took place in 1936. However, there is still a mystery to this particular case. I found this story on the YouTube channel What Lurks Beneath, and the title of the video is Beast of Bray Road. I will put a link to that in the description box below in case you want more detail on this story. I like to give light detail so that we can get right to the cards and see what the cards have to share. So this story is apparently a very popular Dogman story by someone named Mark Shakleman. Now again, this was in 1936, and Mark worked at a place called St. Coletta Convent in the city of Racine, and I'm assuming this is Racine, Wisconsin. Mark was the night watchman for this convent, which meant he walked around the perimeter over and over and over each and every night to make sure that there were no shenanigans going on around the convent. Close to the convent was also a graveyard that was for the indigenous people who lived in the area. And back in 1936, rather than a flashlight, Mark had a lantern to walk the perimeter with. So one night, when he was doing his duty, walking the perimeter, he saw something kneeling over one of the graves in this cemetery. He apparently had been told not to ever go into the cemetery, stay within the confines of the convent. But in this particular case, he felt like he needed to move forward at least to the edge between the convent property and the cemetery property so he could get maybe a better look at whatever this was. As he got to the perimeter, he could smell something really horrible emanating from the cemetery, and he saw some kind of a creature with really long dark fur and claws scratching at this grave. It had its back to him, so he could just see the hunched figure. Rather than turning tail and running, as a lot of people might do, Mark moved forward into the graveyard. Even though this was something he was not supposed to do, he moved forward into the graveyard to get a little closer to the creature, and that's when it noticed him and stood up on two legs. And that's when Mark discovered that this creature was extremely tall, but he didn't get much of a chance to gauge it because the creature turned tail and ran for the woods. So not being able to see a whole lot, Mark went back to the convent property and continued his shift until it was time to go home. The next day, before his shift, he went into this cemetery and wanted to find out if there was any sign that this creature had even been there. And he also wanted to take a look at the grave that it was digging at. What he found was really strange, long footprints that he said looked like a dog but also looked human. And then the grave itself was an unmarked grave, so he had no idea who was actually buried there or why the creature would have been digging at that particular grave. And he did see claw marks on the grave, and there was something to the story that said you could tell the claw marks, but also something about being able to see the markings from a withered hand. Now I have no idea what that would look like, but that was part of the story, and apparently Mark did not see a withered hand or anything when the creature ran away. So I'm not sure about that part of the story. Anyway, it was time for Mark to go to work, and as always, with his lantern, he walked the perimeter. Later in the evening, as he was continuing to walk this perimeter, he heard scratching again. And as he came to a certain point, not very far from the graveyard, but still on the convent grounds, he was hit with that disgusting smell again. So he knew that it was this creature again. Well, he didn't stop at the edge this time. He approached this creature, and it stood up. That's when he saw it was about 7 feet tall. It had amber eyes. It was covered in thick fur, and it was growling at him. Definitely not what Mark thought was going to happen. He thought that the creature was going to go and run into the woods as it had the night before. But the creature stood there looking at him. And then the last thing that Mark expected is this creature spoke. It spoke one word, and that word was Gadarah. And that's when Mark started backing away, and then he turned and went back to the convent property. And the beast let him go. He didn't chase him down. Now that was the last time that Mark saw the creature. And the mystery still is, what did the word Gadarah mean? Was that the creature's name? Was that the name of the person that was buried in the grave? Was that a form of greeting? No one knows. It's still a mystery. So today with the cards, we're going to take a look at, first of all, the story itself. What exactly was this creature? Now it's under Dogman stories. Was it a dogman? Was it a werewolf? You know, someone who didn't remain in dog form. So we're going to see what these cards have to share with us concerning some of these questions. Let's just see what direction the cards take us. So the first question we're asking here is, what was this creature? Let's see if the cards can tell us. We have the Knight of Wands. We have the Three of Stones or Three of Pentacles. We have the Two of Vessels or Two of Cups. We have the Knight of Pentacles or Knight of Stones or Knight of Pentacles. And we have the Six of Stones or Six of Pentacles. I get a kick out of this because the first thing I think of is sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never hurt me. And considering we have a word here that we don't know what it is, whether that's relevant, I don't know, but it popped into my head. All right, so this creature, what was this creature? The Knight of Sticks tells us that this creature is something that many people quest after. Nobody knows if it is a figment of someone's imagination. Some people have seen this creature, but it is something that is quested after. And the number of people that quest after it is growing. People will go out in remote areas and to places that they've heard stories about this creature, and they will spend time out there looking for some kind of sign that this creature exists, and also they actually hope to encounter it so that they can get some answers. Something that is being suggested here with the cards is, whatever people that you go out with to look for this creature, you need to be able to have good communication and be in sync with one another as to perhaps having a plan as to how you're going to deal with this creature if you happen to come into contact with it. You know, are the two of you going to run, or however many going to run? Are you going to set a standoff? It's very important to have that kind of communication. Now with the Knight of Stones or Knight of Pentacles, there are many people that believe that this creature really does exist. It isn't just a myth, you know, that they're questing after. Some of these people that are going out after this creature have already seen it, and they just want to see it again. They want to be able to share stories with other people, to compare notes and prove to themselves that they're not crazy with what they've seen or what they've experienced. Now, this talks about the people, the humans, who are looking for these creatures. The creature itself is okay up in the trees. They can climb trees. They prefer to be in wooded areas. That's where they find their food. That's where they make their home. Occasionally, you might find them in the water. Perhaps they bathe like humans do, so maybe they go into the water for that purpose, just like we do. They also live in the caves, or go into the caves. They don't necessarily live in the caves, but they go into the caves. And it looks like that they are created from something that is almost Jurassic in nature, or I don't really want to say Jurassic because that indicates a specific time period, but during the time of dinosaurs on the earth, and whatever they once were, it was a slow process to turn them into what they currently are. So they didn't always look like this. They didn't always have, well, he didn't really describe it as, he just said, well, I guess he did. Did he say it was like a dog face in the other story? Anyway, the story's called Dogman. You know, it's about Dogman or a beast. So whatever it was at one point in time, it has evolved, it has changed very slowly over time into what it was in 1936, which, from my understanding from the story that I listened to, is a very tall creature with amber eyes, claws on its hands, dog feet, only really long dog feet that are kind of human. So it didn't always look like that. So let's see why it was digging at this particular grave that was unmarked. Let's see if we can get a clue on that. Apparently with the other cards, there isn't a lot that we can see for information about this creature, just habitat wise and what it may have evolved from. So that part of things is still kind of a mystery. So let's see if we can see why it was digging at that grave, that one in particular. Okay, so we have the Four of Swords, we have the Nine of Swords, we have the Sun of Water or Knight of Cups, we have the Nine of Pentacles, and we have the Five of Pentacles. Now, two of these cards are very interesting here. And I think it's going to give me a little bit more of the story than what we have gotten previously. So with the Four of Swords, it seems that at one point in time, whatever this creature was, at one point in time, it felt like it could rest. Like there was absolutely nothing that humans were going to do to it. And the word on here is truce. And I think that is exactly what it thought there was a truce, where humans were not going to be a bothersome thing for this creature, the original creature up through the years or pre-evolved, but it couldn't have been more wrong. Apparently, they decided to, humans, as seems to be the way, decided to be the nightmare of this creature. And they were hunted, and they were caught and observed and tested on, and here's life. This is the testing ground here. And there were those humans that were advocates for this creature who actually cared and attempted to understand it in its own habitat and to help it in any way that it could. So if there was one that was being tested on and had been captured and was being tested on and whatever, you have those people who went and did their best to get it released or just let it go, because they felt that this creature did a lot for Earth and that it was supposed to be there and that it was supposed to grow, not being tested upon and tormented and not living the life that it was meant to be living. So as often tends to happen, we didn't have respect for this creature. And part of what may have caused it to evolve is the testing that they did on this creature. So now let's see if we can get it to tell us what it was digging for at the grave, or why that particular grave. So we have the Mother of Fire, or the Queen of Wands. We have the Father of Fire, or the King of Wands. We have the Eight of Swords. We have Strength. And we have the Mother of Air, or the Queen of Swords. So what it looks like in this particular layout here is that this creature, this particular creature from 1936 that Mark saw in this graveyard, I believe that he was taken from a testing facility and raised by these two people. They were adventurers. They had absolutely no problem in raising a creature like this. And perhaps it is they who taught him to speak. So maybe he was capable of speaking more than that one word, but that is all that he spoke to Mark. And they had to keep him hidden because he obviously was a victim. If they had let anybody know that they had him, they would have had to either give him back over to the testing facility or try to hide him somehow. And he grew. He got stronger and bigger and became the beast that Mark happened to see, the creature that Mark happened to see. Knew how to take care of himself, could make it in the wild. And I think the grave that he was digging at might have been these adoptive parents. That is my guess. And the Mother of Air, or Queen of Swords, is just saying that that's the truth of it. They nurtured and cared for him to keep him out of the testing facility, and they kept him safe. So let's see if we can learn what the word Gadarah might mean. So we have the Eight of Cups. We have the Four of Pentacles. We have the Son of Earth, or the Knight of Pentacles. We have the Eight of Wands. And we have the Ace of Pentacles, or Ace of Earth. Excuse me. So it looks like here that this creature in 1936, when Mark approached him, it looks like he could have easily run away the second time like he did the first time. But there was a part of him that wanted to connect with this man. And of course, the best way to connect would be to speak. And he would have known that from his own adoptive parents. So to connect, he needed to speak with this very brave individual who was Mark. The exchange was extremely fast. One word. And as this Ace of Earth shows, it has been a mystery ever since as to what that particular word meant. The potential of what it could mean with the English language is pretty much anything. Now, whether these people were English speaking, we don't know. Perhaps they were. I would assume, since this creature lives in the city of Racine or around the city of Racine back in 1936, I'm going to assume that the people that took him in or rescued him from that testing facility would have been English speaking. Maybe they named him Gadarah. Let us see if we can get any more out of this. So that tells us what he did. He wanted to connect with this human, Mark. So the first thing that he thought of was to give one word, to speak one word to connect with him. And the potential for that word is unbelievable, what it might mean. So let's see if it gives us any more. So we have the High Priestess. We have the Five of Wands. We have the Hierophant. We have the Lovers. And we have the Hanged Man. So I feel like this creature used some inner knowledge that it had, some hidden knowledge that it had, to try to avoid having any kind of conflict with the human that he was staring at. And he knew that humans were creatures of knowledge, that most of them like to learn and enjoy a good mystery. So he offered the word Gadarah, something that his parents or his adopted people or the people who adopted him, I'm going to say they gave him that name because this looks like almost like a family tree. I'm going to say his name was Gadarah, and that he gave that name to Mark, to the human, so that perhaps the human would look at him differently. Maybe not as a threat, but as something different, just something different. Thinking that perhaps this would again help with connecting. This was the choice that this creature made at the spur of the moment, very swiftly, was to share the name that those people gave to him in the hopes that that human would then change whatever perspective, whatever thought that he had about that particular creature. And because humans tend to look at things in a more complicated way, chances are the creature also knew that this one word, its name, would be a source of mystery for a long time, that there would be a lot of people who would try to determine what that word happened to mean. So let's see if there's anything else. One last layout of cards. We have the Seven of Pentacles. We have the Empress. We have the Sun. We have the Seven of Swords. And we have the Nine of Wands. So with the Seven of Pentacles here, I feel as though the creature may have thought they laid the groundwork to changing the perspective of humans, perhaps, and that humans might start looking at this creature as a creation of Source or creation of Mother Earth, and that they would be enlightened about the fact that this creature wasn't just a creature. This creature was part of a family tree, part of a family, and that it was happy. Instead of thinking that this creature was, because it was different, because it looked odd, because it wasn't human, that it was obviously up to no good. Because with the nine of Wands here, though powerful, the creature, like anyone would be, the creature was tired of constantly being on the lookout, constantly hiding, constantly unable to communicate with humans because of the reaction of humans. And I believe that Mark was the first human since the ones that raised him that he even spoke to. So I believe that was, what the creature was hoping for by speaking that one word. Now, whether it changed anyone's mind about this creature, or whether it just made even more people want to capture it and study it and dissect it and run tests on it, that's probably more par for the course. But for some, again, those who were willing to risk saving these creatures because they knew that, for some reason, they really are a part of the earth. They have their place. They're supposed to be here for whatever reason. They're supposed to be here. But those humans are probably few and far between, and there are definitely more of them who would prefer to shoot and ask questions later. So I think that's a good bit of information about this creature that Mark saw in 1936. So that is the story about the Dogman, if that's what you want to call him. I'm going to say that is the story of Gadarah, the Dogman. If you have anything to add to this, please feel free to put it in the comments. Until next time, take care.